Hey everybody, my name is Ashleigh Slater and I'm the author of the book Team Us, Marriage Together from Moody Publishers. Team Us is really aimed at helping couples, both engaged and married, really be intentional about growing together on a daily basis. Now you may notice that I am in my kitchen today dicing an onion. No, I have not decided to turn this Quarter Life Talk into a Food Network demo, although you know what, I love the Food Network, so that sure would be a lot of fun. You see, when I see an onion, I think of two things. The first is not spiritual at all, and it actually has nothing to do with this talk. I think of ogres and how they have layers like onions. The second, which does have to do with this talk, is a mirepoix. Now, if you don't know what a mirepoix is, that's okay. I was well into my 20s before I even heard the term. Now, mirepoix, it's a trio of ingredients, onions, carrots, and celery, that many in the cooking world call the Trinity. You know, they call it this because this trio of ingredients is foundational to hundreds of recipes, and I've read people say that every cook should know it. You know, it's a solid base for things like chicken pot pie, which I'm actually making for my family this weekend, to bolognese sauce. But this talk is supposed to be about dating, right? Not cooking. So what does a mirepoix have to do with dating? Here's the thing, you know, I don't think that, there's a one-size-fits-all, recipe for success for a relationship done well. I think it can, we can walk that out in different ways, but I do think that there are key ingredients, or a mirepoix, so to speak, that can really help us, navigate our dating and ultimately marriage relationships well. So what do I see as the onions, carrots, and celery of dating? Well, that would be strategy, intentionality, and grace. So, let's look at each of those individually. Let's start with strategy. I'm going to get a bit academic with you here and pull out my dictionary. And go to dictionary.com. So let's see here. Strategy. A strategy is a plan, a method, or series of maneuvers or stratagems for obtaining a specific goal or result. Now, when it comes to our relationships, especially our serious ones, I think it's important that we have a game plan. And what I mean by that is you both sit down together and talk about what's important to you. What do you want to focus on and cultivate in your relationship? Now, that could look different in every relationship, but let me share with you something that Ted and I did on one of our first dates after we decided to see each other exclusively. We decided to go to a park, sat down at a picnic table, and decided to make a list. Now, this was not like a bucket list of must-dos, like let's go take a walk in a botanical garden, or someday let's eat creme brulee under the shadow of the Eiffel Tower. No, we were strategizing. That day in that park, at that picnic table, we were creating a war room. We were sitting down together and figuring out what qualities we wanted to characterize our relationship. And this wasn't a, legalistic list of do's and don'ts, things we should and shouldn't do in our relationship. Rather, we were creating a map for how we hoped our relationship would develop and play out. Because here's the thing, at that point in time, we didn't know whether we would end up getting married or not. We didn't know if, that we would be where we are 12 years later. Who knows? We could have broken up. So we wanted to make sure that no matter how our relationship where it ultimately went, that we were respectful of each other and respectful of God as we walked it out, that we could look back in the future and not have regrets. So next, we brought intentionality to our relationship. Instead of going to the dictionary to talk about intentionality, I actually went to Facebook and I asked some of my friends, what's the first thing you think of when I say the word intentional? And I got some great answers, like with purpose, mindful, effort, with meaning. And for Ted and I, having intentionality in our dating relationship really meant that we took that list when we were strategizing, friendship, communication, purity. We took those things and we put effort and purpose into developing them. And, even now, 12 years later, we have found that that has paid off. I mean, we have fairly good communication habits, and I think it's because we put so much effort into trying to develop them. Although that's not to say we don't have bad days. We definitely do. But, you know, I think that really having intentionality helps you not approach your relationship kind of haphazardly and very vaguely, which I think results in a lot more emotional confusion. We just didn't play games with each other, and strategy and intentionality really helped us with that. So finally, grace. Now, for grace, I'm going to give you a definition that Ted actually used the other day. He said that grace is treating the other person God's way. And grace really applies no matter what direction your relationship takes. You know, we know that not all dating relationships are going to end in marriage. You know, people do break up. It happens. I mean, I was in a previous relationship before Ted, and Ted was even engaged twice. But here's the thing, when you have walked out your relationship with strategy and intentionality, when you reach that point where one or both of you says, you know what, this is just not working out, I don't think this is what God has for us, it's a lot easier to have grace for each other when you've been very intentional in your relationship and you haven't brought in a lot of, you know, emotional baggage. But you can also use grace if you do end up getting married. And that's something I talk a lot about in my book, Team Us, is how to have grace for your spouse when they have bad habits or when they do have sin patterns that you need to talk about and address. How can you do that in a gracious and kind way? So this idea of treating the other person God's way is something that is applicable both when relationships don't work and when they do work. So there you have it, my mirepoix of dating: strategy, intentionality, and grace. I have found that these three ingredients, they provide a solid base for any dating relationship. I know they did for Ted and I. So I want to thank you for joining me in my kitchen today, indulging my Food Network fun. And as Julia Child always said, bon appetit. May you enjoy your next meal as well as the dating relationship that you're in.